So, Marathon's Open Server Slam playtest thing is coming up in just over a week's time. Today, we're going into a much more in-depth breakdown of what it is that we'll actually be able to experience in this playtest. Because, as we've seen, Marathon is quite a divisive game, and there are a few different camps of players, or at least different mindsets and perceptions around Marathon at the moment. Obviously, right now there's a relatively small kind of cult following for Marathon that are very, very excited about the game. Then there's a bigger audience of folks who perhaps play other extraction shooters or first-person shooters, who sort of wonder what it's all about and are waiting to be sold on the game essentially, right? And yes, there's also a crowd of people who really do not like the look of Marathon. On the visual side, obviously it's very bold, but also it's an extraction shooter, which isn't necessarily the most appealing thing to all player types. So given all of that, and the fact that yeah, it's a Bungie game, all types of players are very eager to see how this performs for one reason or another. So I would totally recommend that everyone jump in and actually get to experience Marathon, because this playtest is gonna give us a significant amount of the actual game to experience. So if you haven't pre-ordered yet, but you're thinking about it, I would actually hold off and do this playtest first. Plus, it's an opportunity for those open-minded enough, perhaps if you're not necessarily hyped about Marathon, it's still a chance to see what it's all about and whether you'll actually enjoy it. But getting into the detail about what it is we'll actually play and why this is a really massive chunk of the full game, right? Bungie have said there'll be 2 maps, Perimeter and Dire Marsh, that we'll be able to play through, and we can take on early contracts for 5 of the factions, with progression through early faction levels and progress trees for those factions. So only one of the factions won't actually be available in the playtest, and the same for the runner shells. Thief will be the only one that we don't get to actually try out. We should highlight here as well the Scavenger experience, the kind of low-risk character that gives you a sponsored style loadout without risking any of your current rewards or vault, will also be available, as will the solo playlist, where individual players can match against solos instead of crews. So it's a sizable chunk of what Marathon actually is that we'll get to preview here. In terms of the upgrades that we'll be able to get access to, they will not carry over to the full game, but there will be specific rewards that we can earn for the full release, which we'll touch on in a moment. We will get to experience this kind of faction system in Marathon though, where we'll be able to complete contracts in the playtest to begin unlocking abilities, skills, weapons, and more from the faction trees. So, as you can see, at different thresholds we unlock various different abilities. Sometimes they're stat boosts, other times weapons are unlocked for purchase, that is with the in-game currency, not as a microtransaction, just to be clear. And so outside of the core experience of actually just playing the matches, we'll get a good idea about the sort of endgame initiation for Marathon as well. We'll also naturally get to use a bunch of the different weapons in Marathon. Bungie actually have a really cool site where you can preview 3D models of some of the weapons and even take a look at some of the maps that are coming, including those that will be in the playtest. So I'll link that down below, as the map preview also has kind of points of interest, zones and secrets kind of teased on here as well. So it's worth a look if you want a bit of an initiation. As Bungie have said, in terms of progression in the full game, they're currently planning to start fresh with every season of Marathon, which basically means your vault, your stat boosts, and upgrades will be wiped every 12 weeks or so. Currently, the only things not on the line to be wiped are longer form pieces of progression, like titles we can unlock for our accounts, and indeed cosmetics and skins. So that's how that will work moving into the future. But the playtest will also allow us to unlock various rewards for the full launch. So there will actually be an intro mission for Marathon. I'm guessing it will be, an introduction to the various mechanics, systems, and general gameplay. Completing that will additionally unlock a standard arrival cache for when the full game launches. So that'll include implants, runner shell cores, weapon chip mods, and individual weapons. And then we'll basically get improved versions of those drops for reaching higher levels. So runner level 10 will award an enhanced arrival cache, and level 30 a deluxe arrival cache. Looking at some of the items that are mentioned in there, if you want to know, cores are generally designed for one specific runner shell, and they'll buff or modify the way that abilities work, whereas implants can be used by any runner shell, and they grant additional stats as well as a random perk, with higher tier implants having bonus fixed perks as well. So looking at some of the cores here, the top 2 from the infographic, things like the Tag Enhanced Core, allows Disrupt Cannon to deal additional damage and pings targets caught in the blast. But other examples include things like Mechanized Holsters, where your Power Slide reloads your ballistic weapons from reserves and recharges a portion of your Vault weapon's current battery. Obviously, there will be higher tier cores of this nature, but we won't necessarily earn those in the open playtest. Then looking at implants, Distance Runner here, for example, this is a prestige one, so quite possibly better than what we'll get in the open preview, but the unique trait allows sprinting to build lower amounts of heat after slide-in, so we'll be able to run further before we begin to overheat, and it marginally decreases weapon handling and aim down sight speed as a kind of trade-off. Finally, examples of chip mods which apply to weapons. After aiming down sights for a brief duration, Ornithologist allows projectile impacts from this weapon to create a distracting bird call. Can you f***ing imagine that? In the middle of a high-tension PvP game, a seagull comes and poops on your head or something. But to contextualize just how much of the game we actually get to play in the playtest here, Bungie have said for launch and Season 1, there'll be additional maps, factions, contracts, gear, and more. So the 2 extra maps include Outpost and Cryo Archive, which Bungie refer to as an endgame zone aboard the derelict UASC Marathon. That's the one that they've said will have kind of raid-style mechanics and generally be a higher pressure endgame piece of content. That will actually unlock during Season 1, so I guess at initial launch there'll actually be 3 maps, with Cryo Archive opening a little bit later on. But as they outline here, Thief, the 6th runner shell, and the final faction, which is Sekiguchi Genetics, will unlock at launch. So on top of the fact that there will be a ranked mode in Season 1, the experience that we actually get during the Server Slam will be a very significant chunk of the initial launch content for Marathon. And that's why, whatever kind of player you are, I think it's absolutely worth checking out. Because realistically, if you're not sold on the Server Slam, I don't think there'll be anything in the main launch that will kind of change your opinion, right? And that's why it will generally be a really big moment for Bungie, because it'll probably turn out to be the most impactful piece of marketing in the launch run-up for Marathon. So importantly, solo-friendly experiences will be there, faction upgrades, contracts, stat boosts, the various different cores, implants, and mods. With a sense of the longer form progression, the bulk of the actual real estate in terms of maps for launch, yeah, it's all going to be there. And then as Bungie have outlined, the Marathon ship map and Cryo Archive is more of the kind of endgame content, which I imagine will drop at least a couple of weeks after the initial launch of Marathon. And then an even more hardcore ranked mode for the game will be coming a few weeks after launch. But the goal is to essentially buy a holotag, which is kind of like a contract in a sense, because we'll be setting a threshold for how much stuff we want to actually extract from a match. And then ranking will work by tallying the total amount of inventory when we extract. So obviously extracting with higher value items will give more rank, as will engaging with other players. Plus there'll be a part where going into this mode will actually require us to equip valuable enough gear. Failing to extract will cause us to lose rank, but even extracting successfully without reaching the target will limit progress significantly because we won't gain any rank. So the only way to get ranked progress is to actually exceed the threshold that we've set, on top of the base survival component of successfully extracting. And so that's why I wanted to do this video today, kind of set expectations for the Server Slam, but also break down what some of this stuff actually means, right? Because if you've yet to play or even research Marathon, you won't necessarily know about the various faction systems, solo playlists, upgrades, and how that will actually impact progression over the long term in Marathon. So I hope the video has been helpful. Let me know in the comment section if you're going to be diving in. As I've said, it's totally worth it. And if you jump in and play a few days and you're not sold on Marathon, obviously you'll have your answer as to whether this is something that will actually get better or more interesting, right? Because as we've said, this is the bulk of the game, or at least it is the foundation with a significant amount of that foundation's content. So let me know if you're looking forward to it. If you've enjoyed the video, hit subscribe. I'll keep you posted with more Bungie news, Marathon updates, and Destiny content. My Destiny friends out there, I know. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere unless Bungie don't release any Destiny content, and then who knows what I'll do. I'll be a runner forever. Right, I'm off. Cheers, guys. Have an awesome day.